All right, are you guys ready for this? I know it seems like I'm picking on him here lately. Especially, it seems like I'm picking on the Daily Wire. But Matt Walsh went on with Dr. Phil.
And I'm Ethan.
So, I think he's on with a trans person. This is the first time I've watched this clip. Those of you that are new here, this is the way I do things. I haven't watched this shit before I watched it with you guys. I'm not high enough for this, I can go ahead and tell you. Apparently, Matt looks pretty bad, and that he's taking victory laps on Twitter, and people are like, ooh, big oof. Self-owned, dude. So I didn't want to get any of the smaller clips that Matt has cut up. I wanted to get the full fucking thing. We got the whole 15-minute video. This is Dr. Phil, Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire, and a trans activist.
We've been together for about
5 years.
and
Been
married
for 3 years.
I use they, them pronouns. Being
They are both
non-binary
cute.
Just means that I just don't identify with the gender I was assigned at birth, and I don't identify exclusively with being a man or woman. I'm something in between, outside of that binary.
My pronouns are he or they. I also identify as a non-binary. To me, being a non-binary means
Both of them are cute as fuck.
to explore my gender in whichever way I want. I don't have to perform or pretend to be someone I'm not. I can be.
And they are cute together.
Really important for us to share more information with people because people are curious, they want to understand, but sometimes they don't always have the opportunities to do that.
This is a hot topic.
Yes.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, just to be clear, Dr. Phil is a dumb
I
fuck.
guess because it creates dialogue and it invites conversation to learn about other
Oh, you know Matt Walsh got a problem with
Confused
this.
about gender identity in these times, and it's good for us to have these conversations so people open their minds and relearn and unlearn to what we've been taught.
Right. And Addison, many people think gender pronouns are exclusive to the LGBTQ plus community, but that's a misconception.
Well,
I had a right-winger tell me today that her autistic child was mocked for not understanding the gender non-binary. To which I responded, one, I don't think that fucking happened. I don't believe you. But two, non-binary is a concept that doesn't just apply to gender. So maybe that's a teachable moment.
everybody has pronouns. Like, you may use he and him as your pronouns, right?
Is
use
Dr.
they
Phil
and
a
them
real
as my
doctor?
pronouns.
I don't know.
We all may have a
I
certain
think he
gender.
is. I think he was a
It's
psychologist.
important for people to understand that for trans and
But
non-binary
is not
people,
licensed
we use
anymore.
their pronouns to reflect who we are when we come out and be who we are.
How do you explain the difference between sex and gender?
I consider sex to be our biological makeup. Our chromosomes, or hormones, our genitals is a biological makeup. But our gender is more of an internal.
PhD in clinical psychology. But no. As we have seen with Jordan Peterson, being a clinical psychologist does not make you a smart person.
And gender is what's between the ears, right? It's how we see ourselves on the inside.
Okay. And that's something somebody can't know. Gender is something somebody can't know just by looking at somebody.
Nope, yeah. Because everyone is going to present and express themselves in a different way. I know, it's very confusing, right? Everyone's like, what is going on? But it's really, about us.
Dr. Ben Carson has entered the chat.
Tell someone's identity, someone's story, their pronouns, even their name, just based on how they look, right?
Yeah. And so how does someone ask? How does somebody clarify that? Ethan, what's the best way? What's the most comfortable way?
I think for me, to create a safe space for people to share their pronouns, I will say, hi, my
But honestly, thank you for Dr. Phil for having this kind of a conversation.
I think it's really important for us to recognize other people's pronouns because, again, we can't make that assumption. But for so many people who are cisgender, meaning that you do identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth, you're not transgender or not non-binary, I think a lot of people don't even question their pronouns because we already use them and it's already assumed correctly. But for so many trans and non-binary people, that isn't often assumed correctly. So we need to take the time to get to know people.
Cisgender, it says adjective that describes a person whose gender identity matches or aligns with the gender he or she was assigned at birth.
I mean, this is actually really educational for an audience that
what has
probably
been
needs it.
traditional for centuries, right? Why does it need a term?
Do my hands look small?
That term,
I'm
then we end up
high.
saying maybe real men or normal men or regular men, right? Or we just say men, and then we say maybe transgender men, right? And the thing is that we need to realize that trans women are women, trans men are men too. And so we just want to have a term for that privilege, that assumption that your gender identity is going to match the one that you were assigned at birth.
All right, and then transgender.
Now we've got new people here, so maybe you've not heard me do the whole spiel. I think I can sum it up pretty well. Male and female are labels that humans invented to describe nature. Nature is messy and doesn't fit into the box neatly the way these assholes want it to. Born with both sex organs, there are people born with no sex organs. There are people born with clits so big doctors think they are penises. There are people born with penises so small that doctors think they are clits, and there's everything in between. There are at least 7 different combinations of the X and Y chromosome. No matter how biologists, geneticists try to define male and female, it always leaves somebody out of the box. That's how we know that gender is a spectrum. Plus, the traits map perfectly to a normal curve, like all naturally occurring traits do. Gender is not binary, it is bimodal.
Adjective describes a person whose gender identity does not match or align with the gender they were assigned at birth. And then non-binary describes a person whose gender identity does not fit into the traditional binary of man or woman. And that term can be abbreviated to, and how do you pronounce that?
NB.
NB.
NB, yeah.
Okay.
I've been surprised at how good the content has been thus far.
Transgender people, we are assigned.
But make no mistake about it, the fireworks are when they bring on Matt Walsh and they have the conflict. And but I wasn't expecting them to go this in depth on trans issues and terminology and shit. So props to Dr. Phil on that one.
At birth, and when we grow up, you know, when there's a mismatch of how we view ourselves and how society views us, then we can choose to, you know, either medically transition or just socially transition, or both.
My name is Matt Walsh, and I've written a book,
Oh, God.
The Walrus. This book is about identity.
Here we go.
He identifies as a walrus, and his mom's a little silly. She takes it
I'm glad they censored the children out because the children don't need to be involved in all of
He
this.
doesn't pretend. He's really a walrus. And his mother takes him to the doctor to have him surgically transitioned and gets him walrus hormone pills, and then eventually tries to drop him off at a zoo to live with other walruses. Not only topping the Amazon charts, my book has taken the world by storm.
You're saying that there should be no construct of gender, just sex. You're either male or female.
Right.
And someone feeling
Because it hurts his
in a
fifis.
mental, emotional way that they don't identify with the sex that they have been biologically created as and assigned.
Now let's hold on. Let's give Matt his credit. It is a great book for me to boob on, as Triumph would say.
At birth based on their genitalia, if they don't feel that way, that there's no construct that describes that, experiences that.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the reality. So you can feel however you want. I mean, I could sit here and say that I feel like a tomato plant, but that doesn't mean that I actually am those things. So your self-perception, you can have whatever self-perception you want, but you can't expect me to take part in that self-perception or to take part in this kind of charade, this theatrical production.
First of all, people call me Justin Freakin. People called George Zimmerman Bob Dylan. Fucking Prince, Madonna, like fucking we adopt personas all the time. They call him Dr. fucking Phil. So this idea that you're not gonna perform the theatrics that we're all performing for everybody anyway, it's just being respectful. That is the face that you should make when you're hearing Matt Walsh talk. That's the face that the children were making when Matt Walsh was reading that book. They were completely unenthused.
You don't get your own pronouns, just like you don't get your own prepositions or your own adjectives. It's like if I were to tell you, my adjectives are handsome and brilliant, and whenever you're talking about me, you have to describe me as handsome and brilliant because that's how I identify. Makes no sense. You don't get your own pronouns.
No, that's a false equivalency, Matt.
So you think it's a delusion? Someone is self-delusional.
Yeah, I think it's delusion. It could be a mental illness. It could be it's a lot of different things. With children, there's also just a basic confusion that all kids have. Like that's why when you hear a parent say, "Oh, my 4-year-old son came to me and said that I'm a girl now, and so that's what I'm gonna raise him as a girl." No, you're a 4-year-old. I have 4 kids. When a 4-year-old boy comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm a girl," here's a good follow-up question. What is a girl? Ask him what he means by that. What do you mean by girl? And when you ask him that, here's what he'll tell you. He will tell you what he really means is that he wants to do some of the things that girls do, like play with the dollhouse, or he likes the color pink. That's fine. Play with the dollhouse, but you're still a boy. And that's a question I would like to throw out to other members of the panel. Actually, because just like the 4-year-old can't answer what is a girl, well, this is one of the problems with this leftist ideology.
Yes, Elise.
No one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean.
No self-awareness.
Well-
Can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't. Because
That was my point with biologists. Every time, and that's why we've come to the conclusion that gender is a spectrum. That's why any biologist or geneticist will tell you when they tried to define what a woman is, no matter how they constructed that question, it left some people out that Matt would probably consider a woman. That's the point, Matt.
to say, womanhood looks different for everybody.
What do you define a woman as?
An adult human female.
And what does a female mean?
Well,
how
that's
do you define a female?
someone with female reproductive organs.
Okay.
Someone who's, here's the thing, when you're female, it goes right.
Leaving people out. You're leaving people out, Matt.
So that's why if someone dies, we could dig up their bones 100 years from now. We have.
And this dude has jacked off to trans porn. Absolutely. You guys know how I feel about repression. I think it expressed itself in projection, much like this.
They believed in their head, but we can tell what sex they were because it's ingrained in every fiber of their being.
Interesting. So I'm trying to understand. Your definition is that a woman is someone who is female, you said, right?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Is a biological female.
So what happens if we have maybe someone who is female, identifies as a woman, right? Cisgender woman, right? As you just explained, maybe doesn't have the ability to reproduce. Maybe doesn't have those organs that you're talking about that are reproductive organs.
I have answered the question. You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not myself.
You used the word, so what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right. So here's the thing. So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people
That describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own.
Okay.
Each woman, each man, each person is going to have a different relation with their own gender identity and define it differently.
That doesn't-
And so
I'm not
trans
asking for
women are women too.
Okay.
And you want to hold on.
Say it again. Trans women are women. You won't even tell me what the word means, though. So that's the problem.
You want to reduce women, you want to reduce men down to maybe just their genetics, our genitals, our chromosomes, right? That's what you're saying.
What you want to do is
that's what
you want.
It's more complex than that, Matt.
You want to appropriate womanhood
Okay.
and turn it into basically a costume that can be worn.
I'm really concerned about what's going on in schoolrooms across the country.
The entire gender pronoun situation makes me feel very upset.
People may think that if you don't want to use the preferred pronoun,
That was the end of the Matt Walsh segment. That was the end of the cute couple too, apparently. A compassionate response to my fellow Dr. Phil panelists. Okay, let's hear it.
But yourselves. I think you advocate for opening up bathrooms and sports teams because, from your perspective, the rape, trauma, and abuse that happens as a result is worth it. As long as your ideology wins the day and your self-perceptions are reinforced, because that's all you care about.
What rape?
I think you represent something that is not only anti-scientific and irrational, but evil.
As people have pointed out many times, there have been far more Republicans accused of unsavory behavior in bathrooms than any trans person. And if you want my honest opinion, if we're targeting a group for being abusive towards children, there is only one place to look, and that is the church. Churches are nothing but organized pedophile rings. I stand by that statement. "100% straw man."
And I think you have evil intentions. I think you're bad people. And I think that you are neither correct nor well-meaning. And if one person in the whole world, in your whole life, saying this
What projection?
causes you to spiral into depression and be plagued by nightmares, maybe that should clue you in. It sounds like your conscience is trying to tell you something.
Sounds like you're an asshole.
You see, people scream at me every day, and they say the most horrible things about myself and my family. I encounter more outright
And you
hostility
bitch about it all the time.
than you have in your whole life. I guarantee you that. I didn't have the audience clapping for me. You do. And yet I've slept like a baby every night since that taping. That's because I know I'm standing in the truth, not just factually.
That's because you can't feel embarrassment. I think you're a literal sociopath, Matt. You cannot feel embarrassment. That's why you slept like a baby. You don't have fucking feelings, dude.
But morally, you don't have the same self-assurance. Well, then maybe you should look within yourself. That's all you ever do anyway. You're constantly staring back into yourself, shouting into the cavern of your own ego, listening to the echo. Well, while you're in there, maybe try a bit of actual introspection. It might serve you well.
Self-fucking-awareness, Matt. I'm tired of the kid gloves that even conservatives use with this issue. This is pure evil, he says. It's destroying children. No. Do you know what the suicide rate is among trans children that aren't accepted, Matt? Gay children that aren't accepted for who they are. The emotional blackmail these frauds used after the fact, claiming that I caused nightmares and depression and simply by voicing my opinion may seem funny because it's so ridiculous, but it's also a bullying tactic used by bad people to control the conversation. Says the man that's bullying other people. Oh, fuck. Jesus, what a piece of shit this guy is. It gets retweeted by Matt Walsh. A man accused of child sex trafficking. You were just talking and fear-mongering about rape. You piece of shit. You were retweeted, and then you retweeted an accused child rapist. What? The Speaker of the House for the Republicans, 15 years ago? Was a child molester by the name of Dennis Hastert. Jim Jordan, a sitting member of Congress, a Republican, covered up child sexual abuse at Ohio State University. Do you want me? I know you're against the whole defund the police thing. Do you want me to tell you how many cops get caught raping people? Do you want to know about the Louisville Police Department? The whole fucking department covered up their own rape of candidates in their Explorer program, and the DA helped them. The Louisville Metro Police Department. You may know them from the murder of Breonna Taylor. God damn. Yes, Matt's obsession with the issue is the most disturbing part. I guarantee it's projection. He is turned on by trans women because it makes his little pee-pee hard. He has a self-loathing about it, and he has to go out and project it onto other people. I genuinely hope none of your 4 kids are queer because of how tragic it would be to grow up with a dad who built a career off bullying queer kids for clicks. Yes! Matt Walsh responds, hey, cool, quick question. What is a woman? Matt, ask a fucking biologist. Have a biologist on your... If only you had a platform where you could have a guest on who was informed on the issue and explain it to you. Ask a biologist. Ask a geneticist. What are you so afraid of? And that's like, hey, I've defended Joe Rogan quite a bit, but like at this point, it has gotten to a place where he's just constantly platforming idiots and having nobody on that pushes back. It is a shame that almost a year into this pandemic and him telling young males, his predominant audience, not to get vaccinated, that he finally had somebody challenge him on the myocarditis thing. So Matt, if only you had a fucking platform where you could bring a fucking biologist or geneticist on to talk about this very issue and let them tell you why you are wrong. Keep crying. Keep crying. If your position wasn't absolute horse shit, you wouldn't have to worry about being humiliated by basic questions. Nobody was humiliated, Matt. And look how they're making so much money off of this. He is using this for clicks. His audience ate this up. His appearance on Dr. Phil was kind of like him playing my clip on his show. He now gets to use it to promote himself. It's disgusting. Yes, I realize I'm a bit of a hypocrite for doing it myself, but I feel like I am virtuous in my endeavors. That's another thing. Like I've been in the media business for 20 years. I did not feel prepared to do a talk show until just a couple of years ago. And one of the things that really drove me to it was like, fuck, I'm smarter than so many other people that are doing it. And fucking, I'm way smarter than Tim Pool and far more ethical. I didn't think I was prepared to tell anybody anything. Or to make the editorial choices necessary. And I still go to great pains making sure that I'm right in what I'm saying.